there.
Okay, so I will call to order the meeting of the AAC committee Monday, September 9th, 6 p.m. 6:04 p.m. So the first thing I want to do is I'd like to have a moment of silence for Judd Hannah, Carrie Burke's husband. He passed away recently. He actually served on this AAC committee in the 1980s. And he actually served with our father, Neil Peter's father, Nathalina Markey. So he would have been part of the early AAC committee members. And we can have a moment of silence, please. Carrie, our condolences. Our heart goes out to you. We're so sorry. I'm gonna go to the member roll call. James O'Toole.
Here.
Natalie Sayre here. John Bars.
Here.
Peter Markey.
Here.
Ryan Casey. Paul Nazario Anastasia.
Here.
Crystal Shea. Here. Daniel Theobald. Vacant farmers. Public members. Contributions. Natural Resource Conservation Staff Jim Howard. San Mateo County Ag Commissioner Karen Whittle. Our Bureau Executive Director Jess Brown.
Here.
UC Co-op Extension Representative Dr. Igor Lahan.
Present.
And San Mateo County Planning Liaison Olivia Booth.
Here.
Oral communications to allow the public to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. If your subject is not on the agenda, the chair will recognize you at this time. Please remember, speakers are customarily limited to 3 minutes. And again, this is for public for items not on the agenda. And our monitor is not working tonight. So Olivia will let me know if there's anybody that comes up on the laptop. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you.
So any public of the members, public members present, Carrie Burke?
I just want to let everybody know that the Farm Bureau is having their annual Veterans Dinner on the November 1st, and so you can contact Jess, and that's always, it's just a wonderful affair. So if you have a chance to attend, it's well worthwhile.
Let's do it the long run. Yeah. It was with last year. I went to last
To contact Jess Brown. Any other member of the public with something not on the agenda? Okay, and notation that Corin Whittle is present. Right? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody on the laptop from the public?
No, thank you for asking.
Okay. So we'll move on to the consideration of meeting minutes for the July 8th, 2024 AAC meeting. I didn't actually see that in my packet, so I asked Olivia and she said that it actually isn't in there, so we're going to table that to the next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that is tabled to the October meeting. Next item, committee member updates and or questions to allow committee members to share views and or concerns for items not on the agenda. Committee members? Anybody? I got something. Okay. for the chair recognizes for without.
So you guys have all probably heard that, high path avian influenza was found in dairy cattle's.
Yeah.
And, so it was in 3 dairies in the Central Valley. They're not giving out the exact county, just to keep the dairies anonymous. And so the dairies do trade cattle, and so there, it's kind of almost like it's like one dairy, in a way, in a sense, but it actually is technically 3 different dairies. So they're under quarantine, and so any dairy cattle that have to move need to be tested and have some other restrictions applied to those particular sites. So hopefully at this point, there's no human cases as of sometime last week. Hopefully I'm not out of date. I haven't seen anything come through, but there's no human cases involved in these dairy. So that's kind of my main update. I don't know if there's any questions about it.
You said that, is that any cattle that have to be moved? need to be
No,
tested?
it's
Oh, within
dairy.
that, any dairy cattle wherever they are.
Yeah,
or
so
within-
lactating cows.
Okay,
But it's only the ones that are under quarantine right now, but there probably are some other types of restrictions that are involved. If dairy are moving, let me see, I don't, sorry. But, if you do have any questions, I can definitely help you get to the right answer, but we have our district office that is for San Mateo County is in Modesto for the CDFA's Animal Health Division. So if you guys have specific questions about movement of animals, right now they are asking that all exhibitions, fairs, competitions with lactating cows be canceled until further notice, but that's a request at this point. So they do have recommendations if those types of exhibitions were to be held. It looks like we have one in October, up at the Cow Palace. And so the state is aware of it. I don't know. Basically I'm not sure what her title is, but Lori, she's with the San Mateo County. She's under health department. She works with animal control. She works with the fairs. And so she's aware of this. And so she's contacting them just to see if there's any lactating cows that will be there.
thank you. Any other questions for Corin about that? No? Anyone else, a committee member with an item not on the agenda?
I just have a question.
Yes,
At
Brown?
last meeting that you were here, I thought there was a set of minutes that didn't get approved because somebody got arrested. Is that the July minute or is that June minute?
I don't know, that's a good question. I didn't hear that, but I was surprised when I saw July on here, Olivia, because I thought June hadn't been approved either.
It's
So
true. What
did we
happened?
skip that for some reason?
It
or
is just
that okay?
because I was having to go through the July meeting minutes or notes that I took because I was preparing for August at the time. So I happened to just take care of that one.
Okay, so we still, just for clarification purposes, thank you, Jess, so we still in effect do not have the June minutes.
Correct.
And what about May?
The previous have to. So this is the first one that's gonna
But the
be
ones that we
adopted.
still need to approve.
Yes,
are
those are the previous months.
May, June, and July, or is
Mm-hmm.
it going back to April? Like how far back are we?
It's going back, it's for, at least for this year.
There wasn't a set.
So the
at
whole
our
year?
Last meeting that we.
There was, but no one had reviewed it, so it wasn't approved.
And was that the July?
That was
Okay,
July.
Okay, so the July meeting, like Jess said, I apologize, Jess, I didn't understand it. I mean, it's so the July meeting, so that was brought to the last meeting, and yeah, sorry, I wasn't here. And so that So that one we still will be deferred to the next meeting, and all the months for this entire year, we still need to approve, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Is it appropriate procedurally to do July in the next meeting, or do we have to go in an order?
I haven't been told that there's a specific order.
Okay. Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
I would suggest, if possible, it makes sense to include the last meeting's minutes in the packet every week.
Yeah, what happened is
And then-
that, that's what I had mentioned in the beginning, is I noticed in the packet that it wasn't there. So I approached Olivia, who prepares the packet, earlier, and she said that she had accidentally left it out. So she's going to, that's the reason it's being deferred to October's meeting.
And then first agenda item can always be to approve the last meeting's minutes. It's not, I've done it in other places.
Yes, but the problem is they have to be prepared and
That's right.
ready.
Yeah.
So I agree, but
Yeah.
unfortunately that that's on
Yeah.
its way.
It takes a chunk of time.
Yeah,
It takes at least a couple hours.
right, exactly. So, but
And
I
those,
appreciate you're working on it.
those minutes were part of the previous month's packet probably, so if we went to look for that one, we might find them there.
No, because,
Okay.
I mean, when, was it Lauren Silverman, she was doing those, she was in that, she was like really good at, she was really good at doing it, and it was super helpful to have her do it, so
Yeah.
it's adding to the packet for staff to prepare, so it's definitely, I appreciate what she's doing, 'cause it's definitely time consuming.
So what you're saying that July's minutes that we do not have in this packet were most likely in the last meeting.
Those were
packet.
definitively in the last
Okay,
meeting.
is what he's saying.
That was
Yeah, that's my
definitively.
question. Like, so if one of us was to be proactive, we could review those minutes just by looking for the packet from last.
Does
No,
anyone-
correct. I understand your question. That's not the case. Because it takes, I do a combination of the notes that I take during the meeting that I do right now in combination with listening.
Well, I'm
to
just saying
the-
if somebody has, or I think what he's saying, Olivia, is if somebody has a last meeting packet, and of course I don't, because I wasn't here, that would have those meetings. in it,
Correct,
Because you put
yes,
them in there.
yes.
and They could pull it up right now, like I know, Ms. Shea is really good at keeping from meeting to meeting, the packets in your binder. So not to, be solution oriented here, but if somebody does have it, I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, I just don't have a hard copy.
Okay, so does anyone have a hard copy?
Of which month?
Last month's packet with the minutes from July in them.
And this is the one I pick up from here. because-
Yeah, the one
It
that's
would
here
be-
doesn't have the minutes in front of it.
Okay, all right, so it wasn't in last month's packet either.
Well,
It was,
in
it's in the full
packet.
packet that's
Not
emailed
in the
out.
full.
I don't have Wi-Fi where I live, so
Okay, so you just don't have any.
I don't, I'm not able to print, so I pick them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was in the last month's packet, just nobody has access to it now. Okay. well,
And
I think that was
actually,
A good try.
Just to follow up, Crystal, if you don't have Wi-Fi, so then it sounds like you probably, it works better for you to have it mailed to you.
If, I don't want to add anything to yours. I mean, I figured I could just pick them up here, but if there's, I try to read everything I can online, but if it would be helpful for me to go ahead and print it, I can make it happen.
So I guess just for clarification, do you access the entire packet online at some point?
Yes, through my
Oh.
email, like I'll
Oh,
go
okay.
through and I'll read it online.
Got
on
it.
the
Okay.
computer.
I just wanted to make sure you were getting the whole thing. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
I'm so sorry. I had to call you by your last name because I happen to be very tired today and I looked at you and for some reason I couldn't think of Crystal.
It's okay. I've been called worse, I'm sure. Shay looks fine.
Shay's and Crystal, those wonderful names. Okay, so having said that, let's move on to the next thing. And did I address what you brought up? correctly?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, next item is the number 6, Planning and Building Department Directors Report, and that's for the planning liaison. review?
So for the last, since the last meeting, there was no new plant agricultural development permits that were considered by the Board of Supervisors or Planning Commission, nor were there any new applications that came to our department. No coastal development exemptions and no other types of projects. The next meeting is October 21st due to the holiday.
And next item is consent agenda item. So consent agenda, tell me if I'm incorrect, is that there is nothing that has changed. We agree to put there's no changes in agritourism from year to year. The item goes on consent agenda, so I mean, it's already been approved, but we're adopting it. So it would be the applicant owner, David Rapeto, Dolores Carberry, and All Trust. Parcel number 2024-00187, location 12331 San Mateo Road, Half Moon Bay, California. Unincorporated, the parcel number is 056321020. It's a consideration of an agritourism event for the Repeto's 2024 October pumpkin selling season, starting on October 1st, 2024, and ending October 31st, 2024. And it has the proposed dates and the supplements with that. So that's already been approved. It does say on the bottom, our action is for the AAC to provide a recommendation to the Director of Planning and Building. So I want to clarify, because consent agenda, I believed it meant that it was already approved as long as there were no changes. So I was curious why that was there.
Yeah, I may not be recalling accurately, but I thought the consent agenda, we still have the opportunity to like approve or disapprove, but we don't, like, we can just do it quickly.
Okay.
More quickly. It's like,
So in other words, without going through all the documents and have a presentation. and things.
Yeah.
Okay,
But if, it is basically expediency to get it done quicker.
okay,
But if someone, either a member of the public or one of the members of the committee want to pull it off for discussion,
okay,
you can do that, and then you would vote on the remainder of the consent agenda and then discuss that item that was pulled, the next item.
okay. Thank you both for that clarification. Okay, did anyone have any comments, concerns, or, and we still vote on it, correct? Okay, did anyone have any commentary before we vote? Yes,
I think you can vote for both of them at the same time.
okay,
Let's do the individual question. Oh.
okay,
So he's pulling an item.
okay.
When we get to 8.
Okay, so we'll vote on the consent agenda item for the,
You want to make a motion to approve the consent agenda without item 8.
okay. So, so we're gonna go ahead and vote on the file number PLN 2024-00187, and we're going to, ask for a motion to approve for the consent agenda for the agritourism, for ag exemption agritourism. Anybody move to,
I second that, the approval of consent
okay,
agenda item number 7.
who, I didn't move it though, who moved it?
I thought maybe you were moving it.
Sorry.
I'm
that
not on
sounded
the
like that.
committee.
No, I thought maybe, Natalie was doing it, but she's the chair.
Yeah,
I
Okay, so
wouldn't,
Daniel Theobald motion to approve, is that correct? Okay, and.
you already had a
John-
second for me.
And
so.
John second. Okay, so just for your record, Olivia. So, and then, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? So the next one is applicant, it's item 8, applicant owner John Cosolino, Vincent J. and M.A. Cosolino Trust, PLN 2024-00228, location is 12291 San Mateo Road, Half Moon Bay, assessors parcel number 056331110, consideration for an agritourism event for the Cosolinos 2024 October pumpkin selling season, starting on September 21st, 2024, and ending on October 31st, 2024, and the proposed dates and times and additional information is included under that. was there any comments, concerns, or questions or discussion?
I got a question.
Peter Markey is
It says,
recognized.
it says in the packet, there's one food vendor. Is it a food truck or what? It's just kind of.
Usually they have a food truck.
Yeah.
It's like a taco truck that was going every year, just on the weekends. And then I think last year, all they were able to get
Yeah, I remember the
was
food truck was
a
brown
little,
and,
last year was a coffee. It was like Fishwife Sweets. Before it was always Angelica's taco truck with tacos and burritos.
okay. Yeah, the reason why I asked because
Oh,
it doesn't
they're
just
good.
says food vendor. I didn't know if they're doing a
That's
truck
what they've done in
or-
the past.
Yeah,
I don't know what their plan is.
you know, Olivia?
I don't, but do we, Tiffany, are you still online and would you be able to answer? Let me, oh, go ahead, sorry, thank you.
So in their application, they just said a food vendor. I think it's probably dependent on who they can get. They didn't tell me specifically if it's going to be a taco truck or a coffee truck, but that is what they have. Are these questions enough to not approve the item?
It's the reason why I asked because
Oh.
it was so broad like this here. Food truck is normally certified with the Department of Health, and which is fine. And or if it's packaged food's fine. It's just that it was so open. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, food vendor.
I mean, you can't do a luau and roast a pig in the ground, you know what I mean? And so it's just vague, it didn't say what it was. And I know what they normally do every year. It's like they just normally do what they do with that food truck every year. It's fine. But it was just vague.
They did say to me that they're not making any changes, so I'm thinking that it's going to be what they did last year.
That sounds good.
Is there application from last year available? And if in fact it is, does it specify whether it is a food truck or does it also say food vendor? And this
I
is
can
what-
check if I have their application from last year, but I need a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can we come back to this? And was there any other commentary while she's checking?
Who is the planner for this?
Tiffany G.
So it's the same person. The chair notices that Tiffany G, project planner for this, is the one talking, that Olivia,
Usually in the past, it says food truck, or it gives a little bit more detail, so we can know what we're going,
Yeah, she's checking into it right now.
Yeah.
and then it's their application for this year is here. So,
It's the same as last
I
year,
have a
no problem.
question about this.
the
This
chair
is-
recognizes Corin
Thank
Liddell.
you. So Olivia, wouldn't like anything that's on the application already be vetted by planning and building as far as meeting code requirements for something like a food truck versus some other non-approved type of food?
I believe so, and I think once Tiffany comes
That's
on.
why I asked, because food truck is normally always approved by environmental health.
Yeah.
And this is, but when they just said food vendor, well. It could be
Yeah.
somebody coming
I-
up with
I
a
just
pickup truck
curious
and a barbecue
whether-
and a table, you know what I mean?
I
So.
mean, I was,
so
They
that-
do have to get approval. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's like
It's
something
really
that's
vague.
looked
Normally
at
they say a
by
food
planning and
truck.
building.
as far as I
which
know,
is-
yes.
which had
And
in
this
the past,
is-
which is fine.
This is planning and building on the line. So this is a person that actually would have approved it, correct? Because she's the actual person for this.
Approving the project, not approving the food
Well, yeah.
service. That's only approved by environmental health.
Right, but it's my
But there was
understanding
just
that
a
point of
check.
contention is that a food vendor, we don't know if that's a food truck or which would have been approved, like you said, by environmental health.
Correct.
And whereas a vendor
How about-
could be
how about we do
somebody who
this?
doesn't, yeah.
How about I move to approve it with the condition that it's an approved food vendor? And then we
I
can move forward.
appreciate that, but I think we should wait until she gets the answer unless we have a second on that.
Because she said it's gonna be the same as last year, prove it based on. The same as last year as well.
Okay, so what was the motion then?
That we approve it with
Hey,
the.
sorry. Are you guys, is it okay? So last year they didn't apply for an application, but the 2022 application also says food vendor.
What kind of vendor?
Same wording, food
But you
vendor.
as the planner obviously know, because that's your job to do so, whether it's a food truck or whether it's a vendor in a different capacity. So since you're the one who vets that, can you just tell us so we can vote appropriately, Tiffany? Thank
So,
you.
when I do the report, I look at the agritourism regulations, and there's a chart that has allowable uses or activities. It's in the package, the full
We're familiar, we
package.
made that. But thank you.
So it says like 2 inflatables allowed on all lands, 1 pony ride area, 1 farm petting zoo on all lands, 1 hay ride, 1 train with rubberized wheels on all lands, 1 food vendor, mobile or on-site, including mobile prepackaged food/snack bar located on all soils, and 1 prepackaged food/snack bar on non-prime soils, other recreation/ educational activities, see the discussion below. So as long as it's 1 food vendor, it's okay. It also has a note that the food vendor has to have an environmental health permit required. So I don't know if you will need to condition that because it's already in the package. So I don't know if they've gotten a food vendor yet, but if they do get one, they have to get an environmental health permit to be able to operate it. And I don't vet the permit because I don't look at that. I just allow the event, and then they have to get their follow-up permits with environmental health.
Okay, but yeah, but if you're ag exempt, you don't do that. Chair recognizes Peter Barkey.
When we did the agritourism, and I was on the subcommittee, this is why I asked what type of food vendor, because we do not need a permit from environmental health if it's packaged foods and the display is less than 25 square feet. And that's where the environmental health person discussed that all with us. This is why I was asking what type of food truck,
Right.
because if it's what type of food vendor, because if it's a vendor that it's just there selling packaged foods and the display is under 25 square feet, you do not need environmental health permit. And this is why I was asking what it's, and this is just they, but anyways,
Yeah.
but yes, I was on the subcommittee over 10 years ago, and we had in our committee, a person from environmental health spoke to us and told us that if you met that criteria, you don't need an environmental health permit.
The whole reason, this is Natalie there, the chair, Tiffany, I appreciate what you're saying, but the whole reason that the ag exemption was created was to be able to incur this kind of activity without those kind of permits being obtained, as long as you follow that criteria. So it is correct that you do not need that for a food truck that is mobile, and that would be the kind of vendor. So that's why Peter is asking specifically, when we look at vendor, what kind of vendor? A good example might be if we talked about a table and only wooden tables were allowed, then we would say a wooden table. So we're talking about vendors, what kind of vendor? So that's what makes it that we have to find out so that we can then approve the ag tourism, because those permits are not needed. And we certainly want to help this farmer and allowing that to continue. Peter Markey and then
And one other
Crystal
thing,
O'Shea.
in the past, not too long ago, we passed agritourism that a person had, I don't want to mention names, that the food that was sold, packaged food, and it was displayed was less than 25 square feet. So it did not need an environmental health permit because it was packaged food, and we passed upon it, and that was within the guidelines that we set for agritourism years ago. And so anyways,
And we updated the guidelines too, that those would in effect continue recently. So the question, so I think that a vote has been put to the table. After Crystal says I bring her up, I think we can vote And I have something to say before the vote as well. So Crystal Shea, the chair recognizes.
So not if this changes or answers any questions, but I actually happen to work for both Johnny and Jennifer Coslino, so I just sent her a text asking if she knew what kind of food vendor they're getting, and she said the same taco truck as last year, Celia's. And I did ask if they have a food permit by the health department, and she said I would assume so. I don't ask them to submit it or present it to us. I said,
Well,
okay.
that's
So that
perfect.
gives us
Thank
a
you.
little bit more
It actually,
clarification.
it actually clarifies it because that in fact does tell us it is a mobile truck which is allowed. So thank you.
And
And as far as the permit,
No,
she doesn't have to have one. That's actually the whole reason for the agritourism anyway. So let her know that, because I don't want to hurt her, confuse her in any way. 'Cause,
Okay, so I'll change my motion to approve it as stands.
okay, is it okay to move on that? I believe so, right? And Peter, do you have a comment before I approve?
No.
Okay.
Can
thank you.
Can I comment before the motion? I will just I'll take a note. I'll take a note that we need to include this from now on, that we need to they need to specify the vendor and the exact type of food truck. But in our procedures, it doesn't say to do that yet. So I will just make a note that we need to do that and ask them for the vendor name and stuff as well.
Well, hold on a minute, this is Natalie, Sarah, the committee chair. I appreciate what you're saying, but just so you know, they don't have to give the vendor name. That's not what's required under the agritourism guidelines. They have to specify that it's a mobile vendor, and then that would qualify under what the criteria is so that they can be approved without us having to ask. It would be easier. So no name is required. Well, I appreciate you saying that. What it is, and if you look at the guidelines, it is mobile vendor, what you had just read.
Right.
So that's all that's needed, but thank you, if you want to specify that. Is there anything else before we vote? Okay, all right, so thank you, everybody. I'm glad that was resolved. So we have a motion on the table from Daniel Theobald to approve and a second by Cole Mazariegos. And that's national. So all those in favor, yay?
yeah,
All those in opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda. And thank you for your due diligence in that, because I think when we created that, the whole reason was to help farmers. And so it's really important to follow those guidelines so we can continue to do so and do so.
I just wanted people, so
Yes.
you don't need an environmental permit
No.
if you have packaged goods. and
Correct.
displays of less than 25 square
Yes,
foot.
yes. So Peter Markey just reiterated that you don't need an environmental permit if it's less than 25 square feet and if it's prepackaged goods and that, or if it's a mobile vendor, and that's correct. So,
Natalie, may I, just on the application for agritourism event that was submitted kind of more officially, that's part of the full packet, does say mobile food vendor. So maybe our request would be that they use similar language in their summary in the future so that it's more clear.
okay, on their application, they said it in their application,
It's, yeah, it's
mobile?
mobile food vendors.
Okay, oh, you didn't, planner, you didn't have their application in front of you?
I have the agenda in front of me.
Okay, well, just a point of reference, and if you don't mind me saying, if there's a way to have the actual application in front of you, then you could have taken a look at it and as Mr. Brown or Mr. Mars has mentioned, said that they did in fact put mobile vendor as not just food vendor. All right, thank you. Now, anything else before I move forward? Okay, next item is number 9, regular agenda item. So application owner is Rachel Cartuzia, Moonrock 2023 LLC, PLN number 2024-0094. And we do have a co-applicant for this item number 9 that is prepared to talk about this item, Carrie Burke.
Good evening, everyone. This is a consideration of an agricultural preserve application for this 151 acres of grazing land in San Gregorio watershed. It is part of what you would formerly known as the Arata Ranch, which is now owned by Gunther Hand's family and known as Moon Rock. But this is just going to be adding this one parcel to their entire grazing holdings, which are approximately 1,300 acres. It's totally fenced. There's water, and Rachel and Tom Pacheco, a father-daughter team, are the ranch managers. This has historically been a grazing property, will continue to do so, and it's just to bring this one parcel that was added to the holdings under the umbrella of Williamson Act. All the adjacent parcels, this map is in your packet, are all currently under Williamson Act. And it meets the criteria. There are no structures other than a pond on this parcel. It also has, a post easement, so there won't be any other development on it. And also with their rotational grazing practices, their cattle will also have access to springs, troughs, and other water features on the parcel, just depending on how they manage their grass. So Rachel's available online if I can't answer any questions, and also we can get the owner, but it's pretty straightforward. And really, this is what the Williamson Act was intended, was to have an umbrella for as large a component you can have for agricultural lands for productivity. And that's why they're applying for it. They will all be under, all these parcels would then be under Williamson Act. And they have a commercial grazing lease with the Pacheco family.
So the chair recognizes Peter Markey.
Is this going to be a contract on the parcel itself, or is it going to be with all the other parcels?
That's up to the county. I mean, it would be nice if that was the original old errata contract that's in existence. And then, but this will be, right now, it's just, you have to apply. And however, Tiffany is also the planner on this one. So if they combine it or not, that's up to the county. We don't have a say.
I got a few other questions. It says acreage used for grazing. It's 75% of the parcel. It says there on page 6. Yes,
Yeah, that's the minimum requirement.
Are they using? They're using 100% of the parcel. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 100% of the parcel is
Yeah.
graded. So that
Yes.
it's greater than 75%. Like
Correct.
James says it's a requirement, and so it meets the minimum criteria.
Yeah, it's entirely fenced, and that's the only thing that happens there is a grazing.
And the grazing 100% of that parcel. So to me, it meets the minimum criteria.
How come that wasn't already in Williamson?
It wasn't owned by the Arata family. It was under different ownership. And it was, then it was added later on. And so, and that's the previous owner. So I'm not privy to that information.
Okay. Make a motion for that.
Okay, so any discussion for the motion that's been made? A motion has been made to pass by Peter Markey for applicant file number, PLN 2024-00094. Do you have a second motion?
I was gonna answer a question.
What?
Was there any questions?
I was
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
answer the question about the contract. So we were gonna put it into a new contract, and not the old contract because, I can see if we can do that and put it in the old contract, but from as far as I know, is if you put in the old contract, everything will have to update to the new contract. So you're going to have to, probably do a rescission and a re-entry on all of the parcels that are part of that contract. And I think that would be a lot more time consuming. I mean, I don't think you're ready to do that right now. And if you want the contract to start next January or this January, coming January, that we're not ready to do that. But if you prefer to have all the parcels under one contract, we could do that, but we have to update the contracts, the old contracts.
go forward, right?
Yeah, yeah, they want it done this year.
Okay, so the
Yeah,
chair recognizes Peter Markey.
There's no, in my opinion, there's no need to make that contract go with all the other parcels because the contract that exists meets the minimum criteria by standing alone. And perhaps the owner would like to have it in a separate contract. So if they ever sell it, it's not with the other parcels. So in my opinion, it meets the minimum criteria for standalone and should be so.
Okay, and Carrie Burke, you stated that the owner does want, in effect, wants to go forward with this individually.
Yes, because they
Okay.
only process it once a year because they have to submit it to the tax assessor and then to the state controller also. And so, yes, we want to have this done this year. So as Tiffany explained, let's just do it this way and
Okay, okay, so good, all right,
Finalize it.
perfect, thank you for that clarification, Peter and Carrie, and I'm so sorry, the motion that was given, can we please redo it, who gave, who moved and who seconded? So Peter Markey moved to go ahead and approve it, and to second it was who? Was Daniel Theobald. He was the seconder. Okay, all those in favor say yay.
Yeah.
All those opposed? Okay, thank you.
Carrie has a
Carrie has a
question.
Oh, Carrie,
Okay,
yes, Carrie.
now that that's closed, I do have something because when we worked on the subcommittee, when the audit with the Williamson Act contract and everything, I did make a recommendation that because we have all these old contracts, because most of them were instituted when the program first came in the late sixties and seventies is when the majority of these parcels in the rural area came into Williamson Act, and these are old, decrepit, and they're, contracts, and that, I was hoping that in the whole audit and the new program that we have, under the regulations that were adopted, I believe it was 2013, that we have a boilerplate of some new regulations, and then even as we reviewed contracts, that we could have, more of a state-of-the-art, format, but, and I understand that the planner's loads are very, very big, but it's kind of unfortunate that it becomes, that wasn't something that they could incorporate into the program, but, and in some ways you don't, to me, it would be nice to have that boilerplate and get everything kind of updated anyway in the right circumstance. But I mean, but it always comes down to that if you have this timeline that ticks very, very fast when you're trying to get them in before the deadline, because you have to get the board of supervisors, because it is a contract that the landowner has with the board of supervisors. And then it has, to also go to the state. And so that there's some tight timelines because it has implications on your taxing bill. But, that was just one of the things that to me would have made life a little bit simpler, or having, just for record keeping and having, every time they review a contract that you could hopefully update it to do. But then it requires signatures, probably board action, but that's, so, I believe also in that program, I'm not sure where they are with the ongoing, they were supposed to be reviewing 20% every year of the contracts, and I think now it's only as if you apply for something that needs a permit, then they will review you for compliance with your Williamson Act. So I'm not sure, what the status is on, of all the reviews of those. So hopefully we don't get, fall into another audit situation, which we had previously. But I think they've weeded out a lot of the non-compliant ones over the years. For some of, since now it really is required that you have a commercial agricultural operation in order to qualify for your reduced tax rate.
And then, once you, and if you, may I ask a question, Carrie, is if you, it's 9 years if you decide to go off contract, and it's 9 years, it takes 9 years, is that right?
Yeah,
Just to go
because
off?
it's a self-renewing 10-year contract, and so
Okay.
you have to, in order to get out, you have to file a non-renewal, but you are under your obligation of that contract for all those years as you tick out, and as you tick out, your taxes start to climb
Okay.
to become at parity with, to negate the benefit that you had.
Right, very well said. Thank you very much. It's very helpful. Thank you. Any comments or questions on this matter? No?
I was going to talk about the what Carrie said. I talked a little bit about the renewing older contracts because I think that's what you're saying, like to update all of the previous contracts. At a previous county that I worked at, that we do that. Whenever anything comes in, we would we would rescind and re-enter. And so that we could update everything to the newer contract because in my last county, I think it was something like you had to have 200 acres or 400 acres to be able to enter a contract, and it got lowered depending on the crop, but it might have been like 80 acres or something for row crops. So they wanted to give people, you know, some people wanted to sell certain parcels and stuff, and so it'll be easier to get out of. I don't know how much of a priority that is right now in San Mateo County, but you're also asking about the non-renewals. I believe in 2021 there were many non-renewals of county-initiated non-renewals of Williams and Eck parcels that were not in compliance, and I believe Rob Bartoli did that. So I don't know if you need this information or if it's just something that you wanted to ask about, but if you needed it, you can ask our department for it. We don't have it compiled, but
I'm sorry, who is this speaking, please?
This is Tiffany G, the project planner.
Okay, Tiffany G, the project manager for your notes, Olivia. And Tiffany, were you asking me or the committee as a whole? Because I don't want
I think Carrie was talking. She was I think I was answering Carrie, but yeah, you were asking about not the non-renewals of non-compliant parcels, and then about the department and what we're planning to do with non-compliant parcels. And it seems that because there were all those non-renewals in 2021, which was pretty recent, that we're just looking at them as they come.
Okay, thank you. I had asked about that, about when farmers want a non-renewal. I was just clarifying that it was a 9-year. But thank you for your information. And that's Tiffany G, the project manager with the planning department. Is there any other comments or Peter Markey, the chair recognizes Peter Markey.
I just want to say real quickly that Barbara asked many times to see, to be able to help go through all these old contracts to see which ones are in compliance or not, so that to get them all updated. Other than that, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay, any from anyone else? No? Okay, so I'm gonna move on to item number 10. Discussion items deferred from the August meeting. A, Pescadero Fire Station litigation measures, Natalie Sayre. Committee to review a draft recommendation letter written by the AAC addressed to the county. So I have a draft per the last meeting's request. I have it written out so I can hand out copies so you all can review it and decide if you agree with it, and then we can send it to the, I believe that it's still relevant for the most part. And let me know if you have any questions on it, and if we want to vote to send it or change it or what have you. Thank you.
This wasn't in the packet, though, right?
No,
No,
so we can't vote on it tonight.
Yeah.
okay,
I don't know. Motion to vote on it next time.
thank you very much. So yes, so
Take it home.
if you want to take it home and read it, is that okay? And then Olivia, and then we will,
It should be in our packet next week.
right, if in
Right,
effect, it's okay, yes.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Are there any extra copies?
If you know what, give her yours and I'll
Okay.
get you one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you.
You need to know it's yours.
Okay. Anyway,
So if committee members want to add something, should they let you know?
Yes,
You can
please.
Note in there, so and so.
please do so. So if, and let me know,
Yeah.
and let me know before the next meeting if you can,
Will be
because
for
then
the
I'll,
packet.
yes, and then I'll change it and I'll send it to Olivia. Yes, if in fact you want to add something or change something, please let me know. and I will change it before, as soon as possible, so that it's sent to Olivia with everybody's input and changes. For to go in the packet for the next meeting. So it certainly is representing our group, not just me. Yeah, thank you. And then, the next B is committee member. Any other questions or comments on that before I go to B? Okay, so B is committee member chair. Natalie Sayre drafting steps and paths for the county to help preserve and promote farm labor housing. I wanted to take that as my understanding that we were combining B and C, that they weren't two separate entities. Committee member chair Natalie Sayre listed methods to help farmers stay in the area. Natalie will send a draft list to staff, to planning staff. My first question to the committee is, do you want B and C separate as it stands on there? Or would you prefer that it's together in the same document that I'm making?
To me, together is fine.
Okay, is that good with everyone else? Or if you feel that they're very much two separate entities, I can do that, but I will do it the way you want.
To me, it depends on the length of the
Okay.
documents and how much we're getting in there.
Okay.
If they're getting too long, they should be separated.
That's a good point. Drafting stuff about, as much as I really, you make an excellent point. I think that we should make it separate. And it's not that I want to give myself more work, but you make an excellent point. So yes, Carrie.
Just a related item to this was that on the Farm Bureau meeting last week, that there was a presentation on the farm worker task force.
Yeah, he came here too.
Yeah. Oh, I missed, okay, great. So he was already here. Great. I just want to make sure you got the same level of information.
Well, I unfortunately had to miss last
Yeah.
meeting, but yes.
Yeah.
But I was told that's on YouTube, right? The last meeting's on YouTube, so that's what I'm gonna read or watch before I do this. But as far as C, okay, so I'm gonna do it separately. Is everyone in agreement with that? But then, and Peter, you're okay, that didn't really matter to you. And then C, as far as the list of methods to help farmers stay in the area. So at the last meeting that we discussed this, you guys were gonna send your thoughts about this to Olivia. And I did get one from James Oku, thank you for that, that she had sent to Olivia, but I didn't get from anyone else. Did anyone else send it and I didn't get it? Or if you didn't send it, if you could please send it, and I would need to get that before I can really work on it. I'd like to get it, I should say. If in fact you'd rather not, I'll just figure that's the case, but I want to give you more time. And I also want to continue to talk with farmers that aren't on the committee. And Peter Markey, go ahead.
My opinion is we should put the B and C on the agenda for next month and have it that we can discuss, brainstorm, give ideas.
Okay, now since it's on here for today under discussion, we could actually do it today, or would you prefer to wait till next month so that we have more time to think about it?
Well, next month, but the one thing, and I remember when Cole brought it up, after he brought it up, I started thinking, and I remember Carrie could help me with this here, is years ago, this is one of the things they were talking about, is for more farmers to stay in the area. And they first came up with housing for farmer sons and daughters, and then that's when they came up with low water income housing, correct? That's not consume a density credit. And back then, when they did it, the low water income housing is you were able to subdivide off a parcel to create a low water income housing, which they call now affordable housing, where later in time, they took away the capability of subdividing that you cannot, but if you could bring that back again, like the new farmers are coming, somebody owns property, say 20 acres, wants to subdivide 2 acres off, that don't use a density credit for affordable housing for farmers that could do so.
Oh,
like
wait a
they
minute, are
did in New
you
York.
saying that that before they were able to subdivide it, but keep the density credit in the subdivided parcel, like in
No.
the new parcel? Or that
No,
they were just able to in general?
they were able to subdivide it, and the affordable housing did not consume the density.
Oh,
credit.
okay.
And where at the time, they changed it that you cannot subdivide, where
Okay.
you were able to go back to that system. That is a way of creating affordable parcels for new farmers,
Okay,
low income people as well.
that's a good thing too
So,
for,
because you start, so I start thinking of the past, how it was,
Right.
and then it changed that you can't subdivide and all this here. And so I don't know how many were created since it started, but there was some that were created. So, and that was one thought that I had that we could talk about, and if there's other thoughts, and that does not hurt the property owners, and it's a by choice, meaning that parcel owner could do it if they choose to, and it's not, and it's so looking at win-win situations.
I think that's good, and that's good, and James, I love what you wrote to me about the regs and stuff. I just would wanna ask you if you had like more specifics, and I'll give you my email address and you can send it to me, is that okay?
That was so long ago, I don't remember.
That's okay, I know, right? So I'll send it back to you if you're, we'll do it
So,
that way.
if we could all think about different ways,
Okay.
and we could discuss it next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's great. And one thing I do want to commend is some of the things that you all, like Peter and Carrie, you guys have been around for a while in terms of working, with the AAC and the county themselves for adhering to this and believing in it and doing it. Thank you so much. Is the things like the averagers, the things like, I lost it. But the Williamson Act is one, but it was another one, but those kinds of things have helped tremendously to be able to keep farmers here on the coast. So we do have things in place that you already did, so we really appreciate that.
And there's room for more improvement on
Of
that.
course,
So,
always is, yeah.
And the county,
Yeah, from Kara, because I was Carrie work.
and the county did update their, farm worker housing regulations, a few years past where and this committee helped that craft it, which it has made it, easier. It still just takes time with them staffing to get it through, but, that there are, great rejections and fees and everything else, but they tried to streamline it and have the review periods longer. Of course, now we have other issues with making sure that there is compliance, but, I think that's, the county has made steps to do what they can to make it, more palatable, but you still need that basic information of site plans, and we discussed that a few meetings ago about how to make those, those applications easier, and I think that they're trying to have it be a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, I think one thing that'd be really helpful is an expansion of the type of structures that can be installed by right by the farmers. And I know a lot of people, and I've got experience with this myself, where basic farming infrastructure that I need is held up for years, and permitting applications and bureaucracy, which makes it impossible to get things done.
Right, we should write all- People have these ideas, write all this notes down for next meeting.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, because it is on the agenda, we could spend some time discussing it now, and so that we don't.
okay,
So if we've got ideas now, because I'm like, oh, I need to remember to email Natalie, and then I know that I probably won't, and then we'll just.
And then feel guilty.
okay, so why don't we do two things? Why don't we do it now? And then we also brainstorm for next time, so we get the best of both worlds. How's that?
Yeah, I'm happy
Sounds
for you to place a kind of a time limit on it, so we don't, we don't
Okay.
go into the wee hours of the night.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with that. Then it gets-
Yeah, there's some
it gets
kind of
fun.
game or something going on.
49ers.
Yeah, what's that?
Oh. First, yeah.
Anyways, was gonna say, but I would like to see, the, low moderate income housing get into the subdivide like it was when it was first started.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I follow that. So if you have a larger parcel, and it has a density credit on it, your understanding is that at one time you were able to subdivide it, and as long as the smaller parcel was used for affordable housing, the larger parcel could retain the density credit. Is that the
Right,
advantage?
exactly.
that- Okay.
That's in fact exactly what happened.
But
Yes.
now
Now
you're
it-
saying the bigger parcel can't, neither one of them can retain a density credit?
No, what I'm saying
Oh.
now is, you can't subdivide it. We're back in the eighties. This is,
You can't at all.
yeah, say if you have 20 acres, you want to subdivide
Right.
3 acres off, and it had to be a non-prime soil, and you were able to, and the low moderate income parcel does not need to obtain a density credit. And so that credit stays with the original parcel, and then it changed that you could do affordable housing, like farmland housing, but you can't subdivide.
Right.
And
okay.
see, and then what this does is it creates more parcels for farmers, for low income people, and so, which was designed for.
But now you can't subdivide it at all.
That's what I'm
The
saying.
chair rec-
Did they put a deed restriction on it then also?
The deed
So-
restricted is that you have to,
So it has to be like affordable for 20 years or
no, it's
something?
perpetuity. Santa Cruz
Perpetuity?
County is 10 years.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
like
most counties, I think that's one of the things that is gonna, I want people to think about in between now and next year. And Just Brown, I think is something that you might be really, really important in this part of it, is the comparison of our county versus neighboring counties like Santa Cruz County, because you work with both, because there's such a vast difference
Yes.
in terms of, because of 10 years versus perpetuity, that's a big difference.
Right,
Yeah.
and Santa Cruz County is 10 years, and so, and then it's lifted. Perpetuity. And then, so basically, there's who could reside there has to not make over a certain amount. And then when you go to sell it, you can only, there's a ceiling that what you can sell it for, it's not fair market value. But in the meantime, it creates parcels that people could afford. And Cole, you're bringing up the meeting before, how can farmers stay here? And then when I went home and I was thinking about it a few days later while I was working, I thought about, well, I remember before low moderate income housing used to be subdividable. And I thought that can be really talking about how can new farmers own their homestead. And this is a way they can't, but one could.
I appreciate you bringing it up. I think that's a really good idea. And it seems like we have a good comparison. It's about other counties do it at least how it used to be done. And it seems like it was more effective. I think I'll speak for myself just as somebody who's been leasing both the home and farmland for the last decade or so in this area. And it's I think the challenge is just there's so few properties coming on the market for both farmland and for housing. The housing is really not specific to this area in terms of the pricing of people who live in our community, work in our community. I think that would be a good start. I wonder if there are other counties also that have that subdivision focused on not just this kind of moves on a little bit to our next item, so I apologize for jumping ahead, but subdividing that also has the same potential of doing so for farmland as well. So independent of just the non-prime soil subdivision, also having a subdivision that can be for having a different farm property. Like let's say somebody wants to they have 20 acres and they want to, or let's say somebody's 100 acres and wants to cut off 10 acres or 20 acres that they can sell to a farmer in the area who wants to do that. I think that'd be another thing that would address the kind of greater issue of just farmer setting area.
That's a good point. I just want to recognize James because he had his hand up and was waiting patiently before. So James, go ahead. Yeah.
I was talking to my father a couple weeks ago about this exact topic. He's actually very for it and he misses those days. One of the reasons that he really liked the ability to do this was in hard times, you could sell off a piece of the property to ensure that you had enough money and capital to keep going. And part of the reason that it's been really hard for people is that if they get a bad year and things are tough, it's the only thing left to do is you can sell the farm, the whole thing, the whole rule.
And then hence you have to leave.
Yeah,
And it's the goal is to keep us here.
gives you a lot more flexibility.
Yes,
And
that's a good point. So when we're thinking about this, we're gonna think about the things that are gonna keep us here, make it, we're able to stay here. And then if we can come up with any comparisons to, okay, Santa Cruz County is 10 years. Or in 1984, it was done by this, and this. May I ask a question? Is it farm, does this apply to if you were to subdivide for farm labor housing too? You can't do it either. You just can't subdivide for low income housing or farm labor housing?
Yeah, in this county.
Correct.
Yeah, you can't,
Just
they
period.
they changed it.
But you can, once you get above a certain acreage, or no?
Well, you have to have 2 density credits.
Okay,
Yeah.
So only if you have 2 density credits, and that requires a certain amount of acreage and topography and all that.
Well, so I was gonna ask the question of, and I think the ability to subdivide is important. What about also keeping here, because you can actually have enough density credits to build the housing you need for your family and, other relatives maybe, so that they can stay long term. Because I have children that are gonna have no chance. I mean, I plan on living here until I die, and there's no room for my kids when they've got a family.
That's when in the 80s or whatever it was, when that question came up. And so they were trying to compose something for farmers, sons and daughters. And then that's when they came up with, and at that time they were able to subdivide it. And more now, they took that.
Well, and so that's what I'm asking, sort of this maybe additional direct way to deal with this. Could we just ask them for more density credits for these type of properties to be able to create the multi-generational housing necessary to ensure longevity of the farming operations?
Is it, the way density credits are created has to do with topography and the amount of acreage, correct? So is it something that we can, I want to put everything we ask, right, I want everything that we ask for to have underneath it, the reasons why it should be and all of that. So I want to give some support to it, you know what I mean? Like the reason I should have a haircut is because, oh my God, I've got split ends everywhere. You know what I mean? So yeah, stupid analogy, but hopefully. Yeah, Carrie, go ahead, yeah.
If you review the PAD ordinance in the back, it has the criteria. There's 10 factors in the density matrix that they're physical factors regarding topography, distance from roads and everything else. So it's a complicated formula in order to determine what the density, the carrying capacity of the land is. And also please be mindful that when you create a parcel, that it would really need to have its separate own water source, which of course is difficult out here in our rural area, and also not hamper the agricultural viability of the mother parcel. So I mean, there is an art to doing land divisions and a science too with how it all fits together. But I think it's really good to have this kind of discussion and trying to figure things out. But the county really wants to have parcels that are legitimate, that can be self-supporting. If it is for housing, they have to be able to have enough area and proper soils for their waste, on-site wastewater treatment system, their water, proper fire access. So there are truly health and safety issues, and besides, of course, then trying and also not to compromise the agricultural viability of the other lands. And so there's appropriate places to put houses, and some places where you don't want to have them because you want to save that prime soils or other resource features.
Okay, so there has to be reasons why and reasons that would support it and all that. Chair recognizes Peter Markey and then Cole.
It's gonna be a pretty impossible sell to change the metric system. And like Carrie said, I think we should stick to brainstorming of ideas that are probably more doable. And like when they did the which is subdivide low moderate incomes, so we call it affordable housing now. Parcels, the criteria was it can't be on prime soils, and it had to have its own water source, like Carrie said, and enough size for septic system and everything. So let's try to keep it within reason, because if we ask for, so to speak, pie in the sky,
Right.
we're not gonna get that. you know?
Right, and everything that's supportable, like in other words, this is the reason why, boom, boom, boom. And my question would be, and it's really fascinating, my question would be, well, what was the reason that they took it away? Because that would be what I'd wanna
I don't know.
debate.
Yeah, that's the question to ask, because we used to have this in a different way, why? Because it should have kept there.
Yeah, so what I'm asking about is, what if you don't want to subdivide the parcel? What about if you just want to be able to build a house on your existing parcel? There's plenty of room, it's not gonna hurt the environment, you're not doing on prime soils.
They
for
have to
your-
do a
for your
density
children.
analysis.
Right, but that's what I'm
first, so-
saying, sure, right now, there's programs that
So that
allow
would
you to
change.
build farmland or housing, right, so it can be done, clearly, it can be done.
Right,
I don't see this being really any different.
And without subdividing this programs to put income houses as well.
Sure,
so
that's
you can
right.
do it,
And
but you
so-
can't do it on different parcels.
Right, and if
Yeah,
you can
subdivide
do,
parcel.
right, so I wouldn't want to build a place for my children to live and then say you can't make more than this much money in order to be able to live there, obviously, because that's not gonna work either,
Yeah.
right? So,
Right, because they gotta pay you rent, right?
that's right. And a lot of it. No, but the point being, right, if we want to keep farmers long-term, you have to think multi-generational. And you cannot keep a family on a farm if there's no place for them to live.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And if there are unrealistic expectations about they have to only make so much money in order to continue
Qualify to live. in
qualify
this
to live there, then my
place,
son can't, have a job in the city and make a decent income and then farm on the weekends and then eventually take over
Well,
the farm,
I think the
right?
way to really dive into that is to find out the science and why it is, how it is. So the topography, the density patterns, all that kind of stuff and why it's like that. And then work into how you can change it, right? So we need to really, find out what's causing this flu before we find out what medicine to treat it with. Oh my God, I'm full of an allergy. Yes, wait, I have to.
There it goes.
I'm terrible. I want to call on Cole Peter real fast because I feel bad because I didn't get to him.
No worries. I actually had a question. Carrie, I think you did a very good job explaining some of the different factors that currently dictates how things can be subdivided as far as housing. Independent of housing, I'm sort of taking that out of the equation. I'm wondering if you were able to explain kind of what are the different factors as it pertains to subdividing just land period, because I think one of the challenges for farmers in our area is rare that there are parcels coming on the market that are large enough to sustain an operation, like a small to mid-sized operation. But then the flip side is when properties do come on the market, they're often 100+ acre properties, sometimes 200+, where it's not necessarily approachable. And so my question is I understand the different aspects of subdividing the property in terms of housing. What about just farmland by itself? And is that something that can be addressed, changed? Yeah.
Well, about 5 years ago, the county updated their subdivision ordinance, and I'm kind of speaking just because I don't know, Olivia and Tiffany might not have worked so closely with this on rural lands as I have throughout my career, which I started at San Mateo County as a planner. So, unfortunate, I mean, the rules have helped in that how our coastside looks, right? And but it's very difficult that, that the goal was, when you subdivide, that there would be in the rural area that you would have to have a conservation easement and then also cluster very small non-agricultural parcels. So it only works in certain cases. And again, which has been frustrating for our agricultural community was, though, in order to get some consistency with their rules, there was an exemption for recreational entities and not the actual farmers. And so that was, part of, but there is it's very difficult. And that's the reason why we actually haven't had any rural subdivisions in the rural area. I mean, it's so difficult because economically it doesn't always make sense to do it. And, for the individual, but now at times, if appropriate, they can partner up with Host and Midpen specifically to qualify and maybe retain their house site and then be able to sell a portion for future recreational use. And hopefully that there would be an agricultural use on that remainder, but it's also not a requirement that they, even though, you know, for individuals, you might have to prove continued agricultural productivity. So, Cole, it is tough to do it, and, but then again, you know, the county's aim in the rural area, under the Coastal Act, the primary purpose is resource protection, and residential use is a conditional land use in the, you know, in your open space zoning. And so that's why it's really not necessarily a priority for the county or the coastal commission. In order, they felt that the density, the housing density was to occur within the urban boundary, not in the rural area.
Okay.
And so, I mean, so there's lots of reasons behind it, but yes, I think that might be good discussion, is to actually have a review of the subdivision ordinance and the PAD, so you can see how they fit together and where there could be opportunities for the fact that, or that can be some of the stumbling blocks, and if there is an opportunity to hopefully make, you know, if there's some glimmer of hope of seeing of how there could be some flexibility in order to have that equity building and, you know, and keeping people on the farm. Because I mean, you know, it is extremely difficult in this kind of environment. And when you're in the coastal zone, it just adds a whole nother layer of review and involvement of agencies.
The chair recognizes Peter Markey.
At 2 points. First of all, we should know, we should have the chart of what is the amount for low, moderate income, or what they call affordable income now, meaning if it's one person, if they.
Which is actually quite high.
Yeah, right. If
And
one
that's count.
person, if they make the X amount, they're, if it's 2 people or a couple. Family 3, family 4, so that way there we know what the numbers are, and then, all right. Okay, the next thing is, the definition of farm labor housing, is, that you have to make over 50% of your income, made from ag, plus works over 20 hours a week from ag. And if you have a person like Daniel was saying, say, children that worked over the hill but also worked on ag, you might want to see if there's some flexibility to changing the definition to, so therefore not have to having, and this is an example, not have to having over 50% income derived from ag, but say maybe not being ag, maybe or, meaning that over 50% be from ag, or 20 hours a week be from ag. So therefore, if a person has a child that's fortunate enough to work in a high-end job in example.com and make good money, but still contributes to the farm because they're working after hours, on weekends, and they fit the criteria maybe of over 20 hours a week, but not necessarily under current definition be both, but could be or.
That's a good point, I would think.
Yeah,
And then
so
farm labor housing.
that would help also farmers that rely on their children for help, you know.
Right.
So they.
But yet they don't
some-
have enough income to pay their children full time.
Right, but they're
They
here,
don't, so
but they are working on the farm, and they don't have to worry about making too much elsewhere because and still fall under the criteria at farm labor housing because it's changed to be or rather than that.
And the thing is in this, I want to really approach it, if in fact you all feel the same way, but in terms of writing it is fixing a problem. So I would look at it as the problem being that we're losing, and I believe this to be the case, just anecdotally,
Yeah.
we're losing a lot of the ag families because the kids, the adult children are making more money in the other jobs, and yet they don't qualify for this, for the housing to stay on the farm, because obviously, if you have to choose one or the other, they often will choose the more money, which is normal.
Which is smart.
Right.
And then what will happen is that you die, your children, if you have more than one, will then want to sell off the property in order to everybody get their piece, and it just disappears in war.
And it disappears,
Or
absolutely.
if you change the criteria to be 4 rather than and so you have 3 children
Right.
and they all lived on there, then you can say, hey, we can still keep the farm, we'll just work together after hours, and we're putting in over 20 hours a week, but our income cost, sustained cost of living is working over the hill, but the way it is now, it's and they can't live on there, it's farm labor housing, because they have to make over 50% come back, and then and 20%. So that maybe could be considered something to make a change, to make it more flexible. And it doesn't necessarily need to have to be changed as farm labor total, it could be farm owners, you know what I mean? So-
Yeah, something like
That's
that.
good, and I would want to incorporate, Corinne, we did a study recently about the ag on the coast, and like, even though the Half Moon Bay Review's headline made it appear as though everything was stable, when you looked into your study, and I read it a few weeks ago, so I don't know it verbatim, but it did in fact show how people were leaving, and then there wasn't as much in some of the crops, and it was specific crops, and the ones that are more, that at least all of us are more familiar with. So I want to incorporate her study with data. So if anybody has any data, when you give me some of this, please give it my way. Say this, and here's my data behind it, because I think it's going to have more power to the punch. Chair recognized Daniel Theobald, sorry.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm gonna have to leave. I've got to catch a flight. But the one
Oh,
other
good for
thing,
you.
which, whatever.
Well, hopefully it's a good thing.
Red-eye flight to Boston, not my favorite idea. But the other thing which I already mentioned, which I think would be extremely helpful, is if there was a very clear and expanded list of what farmers could build by right on the property. I've had this experience, I know numerous farmers I've talked to have, where, you know, it can take months, years, multi-years sometimes to get just basic farming stuff installed. And, you know, if there was like, or even just an accelerated review process to say, you know, these templates, and if you follow this template to install your hoop houses or your water tanks or whatever it is, then you're all good. It's pre-approved or something like that. That would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned it before, and that just seems to make so much sense, yes. I definitely-
But anyway, so we're in the brainstorming stage right now. A lot of good ideas, and should carry it all on.
Does everyone feel that way? Carry it to the next meeting? Jeff, if I send you specifics in the next couple, 3 weeks of things that, like, okay, this, it's the perpetuity for our low and moderate income housing, our now is low income housing. It's this, and if I say, what is it where you are, so I can make a list.
Sure.
One versus the other, and just a few, I'm not gonna throw a million things at you, is that okay? And you might come back to me? Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Cole.
I agree. Things maybe would be good to do. There's one last thing I just want to mention while we're on the topic, because I think it's worth focusing on in the next meeting, is in particular for families of folks who are farm workers in our county. There's not a whole lot of paths right now to home ownership period for farm working families. They just kind of point blank, and I think often the conversations that we have about it tend to be focused on, like, you know, like projects like Moon Ridge and like that, you know, there's obviously a lot of good things with projects like that, but I think in terms of being able to purchase a home on site, to me, it seems like there should be some particular, I would say, benefits that could be, or sort of ways of encouraging, basically, if a property owner, if say somebody has 100 acres, the example we're talking about earlier, and wants to divvy off an acre, that could be a site for specifically not just low income housing, but specifically for a farm worker and their family. I think that in particular, we need to try and encourage more so than just general low income housing.
So how to encourage for homeownership.
Yes,
And you're
yeah.
saying homeownership in terms of dividing the land, are you saying financial incentives as
I think
well?
there could be, I mean, there's a lot of different iterations of how that could be incentivized. But I think that if we're looking at, I think kind of the examples that you gave where a portion of the property could be subdivided specifically to just have anybody who's lower income. I think that'd be great in a lot of respects, and that would definitely help address kind of a greater need we have. I think though there are unique needs within the farm working community. We're in our community in particular, where it's very challenging for a lot of farm working families to be able to buy a home in our area. That maybe there should be tax incentives given to both landowners and farm working families that want to purchase homes. It seems to me that there needs to be some iteration of this that in particular encourages that, because that is such a large issue in our region. And I think that's a solution that is not really frankly discussed largely in terms of the general farmer housing issue is because housing is so expensive here, we don't need to talk about like home ownership as being a potential aspect of it. And frankly, it seems like we should, and it seems like there should be ways the county can support that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And home ownership in general, or home ownership for farmers and farm families, just because it's focusing on this and for this particular.
Yeah, I mean, I think it can be all of them, but I think that having farm working families being able to own a home and being able to be stable in the community is an important thing also for longevity of farms. Yeah.
And the one thing that I want us to is I want to research, and I've started to do this, is do people really give a hoot? I mean, I hate to say it, but do they really want farmers here? Do they really want the rural land? Do they really care? Because if they don't, none of this matters. So we need to, so I want to find out, do they care? Do they want to be able to go outside and see all these fields, these sunflowers and all this beauty? And then if they say yes, because most of them do they know where it comes from? Okay, so I want to research that, because it seems like that the groups that are getting the most are the groups that people, it's either politically correct or it is, where all the empathy is going, and that's okay and important. But I think I want to start this letter with, why does this matter? Because if it only matters to us, it's not going to matter to everybody else. And I have a feeling that when people understand what they could lose in our county, then it's gonna matter. So I'm hoping that can happen, yeah.
One last thing. In the 80s, when this discussion came up, that's when they came up with the subdivide. When they talked about how to have farmer sons and daughters. And then when they did, able to subdivide for moderate income parcels without needing a density credit to create for affordable housing. Basically, farmers, kids, and affordable housing. And then, like you say, then they took away subdivision. But if we can bring that back and a few other things, and we can do a few things, that's within reason that the county would go along. I think it'd make a big difference.
Does it, is there any political gain for people to give a, sorry, I forgot that last sentence. Olivia, may I ask a question? And do you happen to know from the county's perspective as a planner, what the reason was that they stopped doing that subdivision that Peter was referencing?
That was in the 80s.
No? Okay.
Before my
I
time.
don't think she was born.
Before my time.
Carrie, you don't happen to know, do you?
What was that?
Why they stopped doing that?
What?
The subdivision where you could subdivide as long as you put one of the parcels of moderate income housing. And so you don't.
Well,
need the
actually-
density credit, blah, blah, blah.
Actually, my recollection is, it's slightly fuzzier whether it was Tom Nolan going back or Rich Gordon that was spearheading, that talked about family farms and having this type of exemption, but I don't actually recall that it ever got formally approved. Whether there was one maybe 2 parcels that got created in that manner. But it was, I actually don't recall that it was formally adopted. And so, I mean, but again, I'm just, that's,
So it was kind of like, so your recollection was more like on a case by case basis? That's why.
yeah, I mean, that my recollection was just that it was talked about, how do we create, some kind of opportunity for children to stay on the family farm. And what they really came up with was, of course, that whether that's affordable housing or whether the farm worker housing, but I don't really recall that. I mean, there's nothing that I can see in the regs that actually say that, and then that it could be different.
Okay.
Because how many people might come up with second or third cousins, I don't.
So we might actually be taking something that kind of happened informally and actually making it, or hoping to make it happen.
Possibility that this could be subdividable. Soon as Jack Olson told me that it changed, so.
Yeah,
that's-
well,
that's,
yeah, I know that it was, I know that they were really trying to figure out how they could do it, but again, once you create a parcel, it is, then you would have to have, deed restrictions,
Which someone created that way, which.
Okay. So we will table it till next time.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for this
I make
productive
a
talk.
motion adjourned.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so Peter Markey moves to adjourn and Cole moves to second. Thank you, Olivia.
Yeah. Aren't you calling me? Okay, I'm meeting someone.
Hey, Jess, I got a question for you. Hey, Peter, this goes in line with someone I was talking to you about. a little while ago, But,
Sure.
a couple hours ago. But,
Are you feeling better?
Sorry?
Are you feeling better? Because there was somebody that took a permit from you and you helped them and they told, it's okay. Olivia says it's okay. but She's not sick.
Oh, yeah. I was getting-
Thank you.
I was getting sick a lot the last couple of months.
Where you guys getting from?
We mainly have relied on,